So welcome. My name is Rob Watson, and I'm the Executive Director of the EdRedesign Lab here at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, where I also lecture. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to today's screening, celebrating the third episode of the incredible YouTube series, Dream On. So every day at EdRedesign, we get to see incredible work happening in communities across the nation to extend economic mobility and opportunity. Yet so much of this work is either underreported or misunderstood in not only national media, but online on YouTube, where so many Americans get their news. We launched our creator journalism project to change that. Dream On is an editorially independent YouTube channel telling smart with heart stories about data-driven solutions in places across the country, produced by Fireworks Film in partnership with EdRedesign. The third episode of Dream On travels to Dallas, Texas. So why Dallas? Well, our friends at the Child Poverty Action Lab play a unique role there in our field as a convener, data analyst, and unofficial R&D shop for the city of Dallas. One of their big bets in their work to reduce child poverty is on maternal health, because we all know that intergenerational poverty starts at birth. And there's an incredible network of Dallas organizations working on maternal health in collaboration with Ariadne Labs, a joint center for health center innovations at Brigham and Women's Hospital here in Boston and Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. And also we'll be hearing from Forest Forward, a purpose-built communities network member working across sectors to transform the South Dallas neighborhood. So today, what we're going to do is we're going to give everyone a chance to screen this new episode, and then we're going to bring you all back for a panel discussion with some of the incredible protagonists behind the South Dallas story. So without further ado, what we're going to ask you to do is click on the direct YouTube episode link in the chat, watch the video all the way through. You don't have to leave the Zoom room to do that. You can stay in this Zoom room. And you can like and comment on the episode as you'd like. All feedback is welcome, and it helps us to proliferate the episode across YouTube. And you see there a screen that my colleague Marina just put with the instructions. Please note we're not making any ad money. If you get an ad, that's just YouTube. So what you're going to do is watch the episode and come back to the Zoom room when you are done for a panel discussion, again, with some of the leading protagonists of this Dallas story, which I'll introduce when we come back. So with that, we're going to ask folks to follow the YouTube link that Julie put in the chat, and we'll continue to post it as folks come on. Watch the video, and we'll come back close to half the hour for a panel discussion with our incredible friends from Dallas. So we will see everyone soon. And thanks again for joining us. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm going to have our esteemed panelists come on camera. Hopefully you had a chance to watch this really inspiring episode on the transformative work in South Dallas. If you ran out of time, just hit pause. We'll be in conversation and you can finish after. As a reminder, we really want folks to engage with the episode, so feel free to add comments in the comments section on YouTube, like it. I always say send it to your mama, your auntie, your grandmother, your cousin. Ask your kids to watch it for summer homework on how to tackle child poverty in the United States. We need to proliferate these stories at scale. So with that, I'm excited to welcome 4 people to the virtual stage, 4 heroes who are leading transformative work, not only in Dallas, but really informing how we think about this nationwide. So we have with us Alan Cohen, the founder and CEO of the Child Poverty Action Lab, or CPAL for short. Alan is also a data innovation fellow with us at EdRedesign and a newly minted adjunct lecturer here at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, where he'll be taking us to school this next academic year. Alan's joined by Kate McCollum, the Senior Director of Maternal Health at CPAL, one of the giants in the episode, leading incredible work on the ground. We're also excited to have with us Dr. Amber Weiseth, who's the Director of the Delivery Decisions Initiative at Ariadne Labs. Ariadne Labs is a joint center for health systems innovation at Brigham and Women's Hospital and the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. The teen birth caregiving model featured in the episode was developed by Ariadne. And then finally, we have Elizabeth Wattley, who is with us as the president and CEO of Forest Forward. Forest Forward is a nonprofit organization that partners with the community to drive equitable development economic mobility, and improve outcomes for children, residents, and families of the South Dallas community. The transformational infusion of hundreds of millions of dollars into the heart of zip code 75215 is igniting healthy neighborhood revitalization and creating a new vibrant core for the city of Dallas. As you saw in the episode, Forest Ford is also a member of the Purpose-Built Communities Network, advancing neighborhood transformation across the United States. So what I'm going to do is invite each panelist to provide a brief 1-minute intro to this work. When we're going to start with Alan, then go to Kate, then Amber, then Elizabeth, and after that, we'll turn to audience Q&A. As a reminder, you can put your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to you as time allows. So Alan, we'll pass it to you first. Tell us a bit about CPAL and the big bets and how the work's unfolding on the ground.
Yeah, so thanks, Rob, and also just thank you to the entire Dream On team for this initiative. We love being a part of it. So the Child Poverty Action Lab we started back in 2018, and we've had the same North Star mission from day one, which is we want to reduce child poverty in the city of Dallas by 50% within a single generation. And when we think about that goal, cutting child poverty in half, that's not just about being an audacious goal, which certainly it is, and it's certainly not taking anything away from it being what I think is as important of a community imperative as we can have. That's what brings us to the work. But we think about this also as a math problem. And so what we wanted to do was think about with the resources and the rulemaking authority that we have right here in Dallas, what are the strategies that we could activate on, that we could actually make moves on that would, in combination, ladder up to get us to that goal of literally more than 50,000 kids from our starting point that were living below the federal poverty line in our city to within just a couple of decades moving above the federal poverty line. And what you saw in that video is one of those major strategies is maternal health. Just by activating that strategy alone, if we bring that to its full potential, that will lift 7,000 kids today over the course of a generation from below the federal poverty line to above the federal poverty line. And we can do that issue area by modeling forward and being really intentional about how we ladder action and policy together.
Thanks so much for that, Alan. Kate, I'd love for you to say a bit more about CPAL's maternal health work, Trust Her, and Teen Birth. It's fascinating to see the way these different entry points have come together to really improve outcomes on such a pressing public challenge. So I'd love for you to share more about how it's unfolding.
Yeah, I would be happy to and echo Alan's thanks that we're all just so excited to be here and to see this come together and be able to share the work that's happening in Dallas. I think when we think about maternal health and child poverty, and our maternal health strategic kind of work is really centered around this idea that being able to decide if and when you have a child is one, just a deeply personal and impactful decision for any woman in her family. And she deserves kind of every resource she has to make that decision for herself. But it also is deeply impactful on her economic trajectory in life. Deciding if and when you want to have a kid and kind of the timing of that is really a big piece of the puzzle when it comes to your kind of lifespan and what it's going to look like. And so Trust Her is really focused on that. How do we ensure that all women, all families have access to their preferred method of birth control when they want it? So if they show up at a clinic, we want that clinic to be close to them, accessible by public transportation, and that clinic should have all methods available, and they should be able to get it that same day so that we're not sending patients away to return for multiple appointments, which we know those are barriers. They're going to have to find transportation, childcare, take time off work now, not once, but maybe twice. And so Trust Her is really built around this idea of, easy access to your preferred method of birth control so you can decide if and when you want to have a family. And if we kind of draw out the family planning journey, right, if you do decide to have a family, how do we ensure it is the most positive and resourceful experience? And that brought us to Teen Birth, which we were just so impressed by the outcomes they were having across the country. They hadn't gotten into Texas yet. And so it felt like a really nice pairing in another program to bring in and center patients' experiences when they do decide to have a family.
Thanks so much for that, Kate. Amber, would love to bring you into the mix here. And it's incredible the work you're leading at Ariadne. I'd just love if you'd say a bit more about the Delivery Decisions Initiative, its collaboration with CPAL and the Teen Birth research. It's just striking the impact that this is having in different communities across the nation.
Great. Thanks, Rob. And it's great to see everyone. Thank you for being here to listen to us chat and share this exciting work, and also was super impressed with how the little video turned out. So thank you for allowing us to participate. But teen birth was really designed to improve both the safety of childbirth and the experience, or we like to use this word, the dignity in childbirth. This is such like a formative period in people's lives, and often decisions about healthcare get made without women's input, and we really want decisions to actually come and be surrounded by what women actually want for their bodies and in their birth journey. So Teen Birth was designed in 2018. Today, we're in about 300 hospitals, 25 states, and actually now about 5 countries. And when we look to work in a new area of the country, we look for these really strong place-based partners that can really be the boots on the ground, who can be that trusted messenger that can help activate not just the hospital where that birth is taking place, but the entire healthcare ecosystem. We're not looking to like put a band-aid on. We really want to actually transform how care is delivered and who's at the center of care. And in order to do that, you really need the whole ecosystem kind of applying those levers, the pressure to actually change. And so that's how we really got connected with CPAL as that role in the Dallas area. I'll pause there because I could talk about this forever. Sorry.
Well, thanks, Amber. And you teed up Elizabeth nicely here on the critical role of place-based partners. Elizabeth, I would love for you to talk more about Force Forward's work to transform South Dallas, talking a bit more about the collaboration with the local faith-based entities, Viola's House, the Forest Theater Restoration. And the favorite sentence in the episode for me is just, it's coming back. It's coming back. And that real spirit of what it looks like for people to reclaim their place.
Absolutely. So, one, it was great to see that video and see all the partners come together. Those are neighbors. I'm not even a good softball player, and I can throw a rock and hit where Thana's located. Pastor Chris, we are all neighbors in this together. So I lead Force Forward. It is a place-based initiative and work, and our goal is to improve life expectancy in zip code 75215. Again, it sounds audacious to some, but for me, I find it very possible, especially through the partnership that is taking place in South Dallas. So we do use the purpose-built communities model, and so through that, we have a pathway of economic vitality. For us, that's through the restoration and expansion of the historic Forest Theater. So everybody's excited to see it come back to life. It was built in 1949. It has sat dormant since 2009, and everyone is ready to have it activated, but also that will bring employment opportunities, additional educational opportunities. The first Starbucks in South Dallas is coming. So that is our anchor for economic vitality. We also have our partnership with the school district that has now formed our neighborhood elementary school once went from pre-K to 5th, is now a full-blown arts academy all the way from pre-K to 8th grade. We have a waiting list. We have students that are excelling and getting into Booker T. Washington. And then once all of that is done and we open the theater, we're working towards 300 units of mixed income housing in a concentrated geography. So we really want to bring resources and assets to the neighborhood for people to be able to thrive. And we do that through place-based work.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I want to come back to you just to build on that. So you have so many transformative efforts happening in the built environment, in education, and economic development. But can you say a bit more about what I know a lot of us are struck by, the team of community volunteers you have, the folks who are going door to door, who are building trust, who are bringing people together around a shared vision. To get hard things done requires that sort of social cohesion. So how will you all approach that? And how have you created this intergenerational squad of people getting things done in the neighborhood?
Yeah, it was great to see them represented in the video. And one, we don't often refer to them as volunteers. They are neighbors and partners in this work, and they live there. These are residents that want to see their community come back and thrive. And so they've joined the effort. We partner with them to do that. And they are our biggest advocates. Tell the story, share the story. And they've lived this. They've lived through the theaters up and down openings and closings. They've lived through the transition of once being a primarily Jewish neighborhood to a Black neighborhood. So this is something that they are part of and want to be part of. So we're all moving the same direction. And that is what makes neighborhood revitalization work, is when people see and believe in the bigger mission of what's before us.
Thanks so much for that, Elizabeth. Kate, I know so much is dynamic about this working in real time. I'd love for you to say a bit more on, since this episode was shot, what are some of the new developments on the maternal health front in Dallas?
Yeah, I'd love to share more. I mean, within our trust her work, we continue to expand. We're at about 40 clinics now across the Dallas area. We're also looking at expanding into Fort Worth because we know the need is really across North Texas. So that's a kind of big move that we're really excited about. We also continue to really push on the education front when it comes to our trust her work. There is just so much misinformation out right now about birth control in particular. It's really affecting our young people who are on social media. And so we do a lot of really personalized outreach. We go out and set up in places we know young people, but really women of all ages are hanging out so that we can talk about all the different things. What methods are available? What fears do you have? What side effects are you concerned about? So we try to combat some of that misinformation. Um, in regards to some of the other projects you saw, especially the iron pill distribution, that is really part of a large project happening here across the DFW Metroplex called the Maternal Health Accelerator, which is working to lower severe obstetric complication rates across our entire region by 20%. So it's an incredible project that every major hospital in our region is working on. And that was originally a federal grant that we were awarded. It got cut, but an amazing kind of collaboration of funders, local community partners came together to continue pushing it forward. So that was a huge development that we've seen, and we've been really excited to see that momentum and progress.
Thanks so much, Kate. Amber, I know you all are working and supporting so many different parts of the country, very different political and institutional contexts, state and local level. But using evidence, I think, really to show that there's a way for folks to come together to improve outcomes. I'd love for you to just say more about how this plays out with different maternal health providers and maternal health organizations to drive innovations at scale.
Yeah. Well, my background is nursing, and so I spent my years at the bedside at a hospital in Washington State. And I'm now out in the Boston area, and honestly, those healthcare environments are pretty similar. It really wasn't until I was working across the United States that I really, it was really impressed upon me that the care you have access to, your treatment options, the type of care is really linked to the zip code you live in. And I know there's research on it, but it's different when you're walking the hallways. And so when we move into a new region or like this project in Texas, we come at it as learners in a new space, and we need those local experts that can help make context adaptation. So when Team Birth was designed, we designed it for scale so that it's working in Texas, but it's also implemented right now in Nepal. And when we work with these partners, we want to work with community members to drive what those adaptations look like and to actually drive the implementation towards the hospital. It's a very different lever for change, and often it's the hospitals working to change and sort of show it outwards, but it's much more powerful. It's coming from the community. And I'm in Boston. I can't work in Dallas in the capacity that the team and the leaders here can. So our goal in working with Kate and her team is really to transfer capacity knowledge. All of our tools, by the way, of the model are on the website for free. But there is a lot of learning and know-how that comes with it. And so over the past couple of years, we've been training Kate, and you can see she is very capable and knowledgeable about the model and really will help to sustain it and live on, because change doesn't happen quickly. It takes a lot of hand-holding and continuous work.
For that, Amber. Alan, there's a number of questions coming in about roles and what different organizations are best positioned to do at the neighborhood level, at a regional level, at a state level, at a national level, like you just heard from Amber. So, how do you think about, a part of the episode is, we different, and you said different folks have rulemaking authority, a sphere of influence where they can make an impact, getting those partners to align towards shared goals. CPAL's role as an R&D, an unofficial R&D. How do you think about getting folks to be the best versions of themselves institutionally and putting data at the center? Help us understand how that plays out in practice. And particularly, we had a few questions coming about the local government and all this, which I know is a part of your origin story.
Sure. Well, I mean, Rob, we talk about, you and I talk about this a lot, right? Like my belief is like the worst mistake we could make is assume that if we just pass good policy, that the ground conditions are going to match our intentions. It takes a lot of different players doing reinforcing work to change experiences that kids have. And that's kind of where I would start, by focusing on what I like to say, who our customer is, and that's kids. And the entire body of work that we're focused on, whether you're coming at this as a frame of economic mobility or child development, is how experiences that kids have in childhood shape opportunity throughout their lives, right? And the places where kids have most of their experiences are in the home, in the school, and in the neighborhood. And so let's just use Elizabeth's work at Forest Forward as an example here. One of the really remarkable things that you would see if you spent time in the Forest District is the transformation that has occurred at the MLK Arts Academy, or the K-8 school that sits at the center of that neighborhood. Now, I used to work for the school district, and I used to walk the halls of that school before it was when I was in elementary school, before Forest Forward got started. Um, it is a completely different school today. The rigor of the work, once it became an arts academy and once the whole neighborhood movement really became embedded in the culture of the school, is unbelievable. And that is a product of not having a neighborhood that is waiting for the system to just waterfall down upon it, but for the neighborhood to actually be creating feedback loops and having dialogue and actually shaping what the expectations for kids actually are. Right. So I'm a data guy. So I fundamentally believe that there's nothing more frustrating than feeling closest to the data and furthest from the decision making. When this work is at its best, right, you have all sorts of players, from those on the ground to those that are, thinking regionally, and the public officials office, all with different cuts of data so that they can talk to one another, so that they can translate among one another. But that you have feedback loops so that you're starting with who your customer is, you're starting with the experience of kids, and you're working backwards to find out how the systems are shaping those experiences, and you're driving your interventions everywhere where there's a breakdown in that causal chain.
Thanks so much for that, Alan. So I want to give, Alan, I'm going to come back to you on the close to talk more about journalism, because I do, before we hop, want to just talk about some of the work you all are doing with the lab report, the importance of journalism in today's era. But I would love Elizabeth, Kate, and Amber to give you a chance to provide us with some closing thoughts. Anything you'd like, really. We have folks tuning in from across the country today on this webinar, and we know that after this, we will proliferate this, and we hope everyone will, to get as many people learning about what's happening in South Dallas. And I think one thing that's always struck me about the work you all are doing is how interdisciplinary it is. I remember when we all got our start somewhere in this work. Some of us might have been in education, it might have been as an urban planner, it might have been as a nurse, it might have been in the public health space. But I think all of us have come to a conclusion that this work is truly interdisciplinary, that there's different sectors that need to come together, different disciplines, and that we need different superpowers of institutions and of individuals to really move the work at scale, to address that hard challenge, Elizabeth, you talked about life expectancy. But I wonder, what advice would you give to other folks who are thinking about doing this in Appalachia, or in my hometown of Poughkeepsie, New York, or in the Bronx, or in the Mission District of San Francisco, or in a rural community in New Mexico? What advice would you give to us about what it takes to do this kind of work? We'll start with you, Elizabeth, and then we'll go to Kate and then Amber.
Sure. So I will absolutely agree. It is indeed interdisciplinary. And I don't have a background in any of those things. So you could only imagine on how much we rely and lean on collaboration and partnership. I think in the video, we use that word so frequently. Oh, we're collaborating, we're partnering. But that took a while. It took a while for South Dallas to do that, for us to become partners, lean on each other, put the strategy together to see how our work impacts one another. And now it's incredible. We're moving as a unit, even seeing that video and seeing, friends, our neighbors, people that we're working with. And truly, that's why I believe that we have the opportunity to improve life expectancy in our neighborhood, because we do have so many people working on it in the same way to move the needle forward. And for me, I really think which you'll hear all the time, to be able to do place-based work in neighborhoods, you have to have the trust of the residents. And I think that was shown in the video in a small way, but everyone wants to live in a better neighborhood. Everybody wants better opportunity for their kids and their families. And so that is what people are buying into, and that is what people are leaning into.
Elizabeth. Kate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a perfect segue. I was gonna speak to kind of trust of the people that we're, living with and working with when we think about the goals we have here. I, have worked now in women's health in Oklahoma and Texas for a number of years, and I get asked a lot, is it, kind of contentious, or are people upset that you're doing this kind of work? And the reality is, I think so much of the work we are doing is actually informed by how much people want to talk to us about this. Every time I go out and I have a table and there's like a birth control model there, every woman, even, men, families, they have a story. They, know somebody who used something and they want to talk about it. They've struggled with something. They want to tell you about it. They often get really personal. But like, people are not as afraid to talk about these topics as I think we assume they might be, because I don't think they have any avenues to do it. I'm sure Amber can relate to this too. Women want to tell their birth stories. You start talking about, oh, I'm working on labor and delivery and these are the projects I'm doing, they're going to tell you their birth story. And so I think, talking to the people that are going through these experiences and really understanding, where are they getting their information? What barriers are they having? I think that's really deeply informed everything we've done here in our maternal health work and with Trust Her. And so I think just listening to folks to understand, what strategies you're going to take on is really critical, and to have the trust of the community as you work on them.
Okay, Amber?
So besides trust, which I feel like is really foundational to all this work and nothing can happen without it, one thing I think CPAL has done a really, really good job on is staying very true to the North Star and the mission. And if we can align across disciplines, across positionality on what we're trying to achieve and stay really crisp about that, the how can work itself out. And I think CPAL's done an excellent job at continuing to put that out, both verbally, but also in lots of different media like you saw today. The other thing, when we work with hospitals, our team really values leading with empathy. That we don't believe people come to work aiming to harm patients or harm women in their birth, and yet it happens every day. And in order to really change the systems around them, we need to be able to empathize both with what it feels like to be a clinician every day in hospitals in Dallas, but also what it feels like to be a woman, like we saw in the video today. So I think if people are, envisioning this work in the communities they live in, I think trust, vision, and empathy.
Thanks, Amber. Alan, I wonder if just give you last word on two considerations here. One is I would love, there was a question in the chat coming about how to pay for this. And I know you and Elizabeth think a lot about the capital stacks all the time. And so I do think it would be helpful. And Elizabeth, I might come back to you too to say a quick word about that. Just if you want to jump in there. Maybe Elizabeth, sorry, I'll start with you, then I'll go back to Alan, just to say a bit about how do you pay for the different kind of moves. And then Alan, I'll come to you, and then I'll tee up the journalism piece.
Absolutely. So we have had to get very creative with our capital stack. We certainly have philanthropy here, but also the theater is a new market tax credit deal and a historic tax credit deal. We've also received local funding from the city of Dallas and federal funding from HUD. So we have any type of source, we are certainly bringing that to the neighborhood. And then also through our partnership with the school district, we were able to bring bond dollars to the neighborhood. So the school also went through an expansion, and we were able to route about $20 million of bond money to the school. So certainly, we use every resource available that we can bring to the neighborhood, but diversifying the capital stack is certainly a part of our success.
Thank you. Alan, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't want to minimize the importance of like state and federal policy. And so there's a lot of folks that are joining us today that do incredible work on policy advocacy work, and it is really, really important. But I also don't want to minimize like what you can do with the resources and the decision-making authority that's already local. And that's really what our story is about. I don't know that there is anybody who's being intellectually honest, I would say that like Texas is not a somewhat restrictive environment when you're talking about maternal health care. This is not really like where you'd expect the video about advances on maternal health care to be taking place. But there's incredible work happening on the ground because we're figuring out, despite it being very fragmented and despite not always being set up in the easiest way, we're figuring out how to bring resources together and how to collaborate to advance like real work on the ground. So, what I would tell you is the second part of that, it really is the science of collaboration, which is not, I think there was a clip about me talking about it on the video, but collaboration isn't easy. So if you think collaboration is big sheets of paper and sticky dots, I don't think that this is actually the work for you on the ground. I like sticky dots. I like big sheets of paper. Okay. But like what I really think that, collaboration takes is first, remembering what you're actually trying to accomplish and who your customer actually is, right? And then second, when collaboration gets really hard, and it's gonna get hard because there are adults involved, and adults tend to act like children a lot of the time, then you go back to the previous rule, which is remember who your customer is and remember what you're trying to accomplish. And you just kind of keep going, like step by step by step, one day at a time. And then you look back and you're like, wow, like the neighborhood transformation that's happening in the Forest District, the number of community clinics around our region that are offering free birth control and contraceptive counseling, the over 20% reduction in the teen birth rate in our region, the number of hospitals that are providing great care for moms during delivery. Literally, some of the most nation-leading results on reducing severe obstetric complications or maternal morbidity rates. You don't expect that to happen in Texas, but it's possible. And we're showing that it's about a will, a way, and taking advantage of the resources and the decision authority that we all have locally in our communities, even if the state or the federal government isn't going to do it for us.
Thanks for that, Alan. And that's a real boost of hope in a time where we desperately need it. I do want to give you a chance to say a quick word about journalism. I would be remiss if I didn't give a special shout out to Joe Posner and James Watson, the co-producers of the Dream On series and this episode, two independent journalists. It is one of the great joys of my life and of EdRedesign and the team that we get to work on this project and really think about what it looks like to help proliferate independent journalism covering some of the best solutions in America to intergenerational poverty and economic mobility. Alan, you all at CPAL are also up to something special with the lab report on this front. And so I wonder if you'd say a quick word about that, and more broadly, why do we need to be thinking about journalism just like we need to be thinking about maternal health?
Well, I mean, first I'll just say you and the team at the EdRedesign Lab and Joe and James on the Creator Journalism Project really helped push my thinking on why we're investing in journalism at CPAL. And we've launched a nonprofit newsroom called The Lab Report. Go to labreportdallas.com to see. But look, I end up in a lot of conversations about what the future of the education system is going to look like in an AI world. What should education look like? And there's a lot of answers to that, but one of the answers I always give is we need to double down on civics education. We need to understand how things work. We need to understand why things don't work, and we need to understand who it's working for and who it's not working for. And I think a great metro section, I think a great local newspaper helps us get a civics education day in and day out, week in and week out. And I think that as we have seen changes to the local media landscape, and we've seen local newspapers fallen by the wayside in this country, that there's been a real loss in our ability to get that kind of channel of civics education. So we're investing as a core, narrative strategy, not just advocacy work or not just talking about strategies, but literally funding journalists to be editorially independent and just be journalists, to create a mirror for our community on what is working and what is not, and how things actually do or don't work.
Thanks for that, Alan. So for those of you like me who love all of the disciplines, we added journalism and democracy there at the end. You like how he snuck that in there? Well, we want to give a virtual round of applause to Elizabeth, to Kate, to Amber, to Alan, to the entire team that made this collaboration possible. Thank you to everyone who joined us for today's launch. If this is your first time with us, we welcome you to Team Dream. You can support this engagement in a number of ways. So definitely link and comment on the episode, subscribe to Dream On, sign up for updates from Dream On. The channel will continue to post more short form content in the coming weeks, so look out for that. Stay tuned as our next episode is coming on August 4th. So look for the next community that'll be dropping knowledge on us. And lastly, the most important way you can help is by sharing the channel in today's episode with your friends, your family, anyone in your network. And we challenge everyone to send a link to 3 people who you know and also care about reclaiming the American dream. In closing, I would like to special gratitude to everyone who made Dream On possible. So again, the entire team at EdRedesign, special shout out to Julie Allen, Sarah Grucha, Marina Jokic, and Tawhida Jackson. The fireworks team, James Watson, Joe Posner, and their creative collaborators, Dave Mayers, Nishta Shanti, Jen Chu, and Dion Lee, and our incredible supporters at the Hearthland Foundation. So thanks, everyone. We'll see you soon, and keep dreaming. Take care.